I want to thank everybody for being here today. We are here to talk about how AI extracts T-12s, rent rolls, and deal docs directly into your Excel financial models with no rekeying and no retemplating. If you've been at one of our webinars before, you know that we are demo heavy. We like to fly through the slides so that we can actually show you the workflow live and not talk at you about what it could do. So please drop your questions in the chat at any time. We'll address them as we go or at the end. Joining me today, I've got Pedram Gabati, the solution architect for commercial real estate here at Kolena. He builds workflows and works directly with the CRE firms that are our customers and prospects. So he's the person to hear from on how this actually works under the hood. Pedram, thank you for joining.
Thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
So let's get a quick walkthrough. Today, we're going to start with a fast overview of Kolena for those of you that are unfamiliar. We're going to dig into the problem. We're going to talk about how the solution works, and we're going to spend the bulk of our time, like I said, on the live demo. So if you have any questions during the slides, throw them in the chat. I'm going to be flying through them so that we can get to the demo, but I want to set the table first so we have some context. Pedram is going to be driving the demo. I'll jump in with some questions that I know a lot of you have because I've talked to enough of you to know, or we've talked to enough of you as a company to know what's on your mind. So let's get into it here. Quick context on Kolena for those who are new to us. We help teams automate document-heavy workflows with AI. We work in real estate, insurance, banking, basically anywhere that there's a stack of documents between you and a decision. Some customers that we work with within the industry here. And today, we're going to be focusing on T12 extraction and financial model population. But as you can see, the platform handles lease abstraction, rent roll reconciliation, investment memos, portfolio reporting. The list goes on and on and on. Pedram, you work with some of these firms that I showed on the screen here. What's one thing that you'd want this audience to know about how the platform works before we get into specifics? Quick 30-second take.
Yeah, absolutely. So the platform is really good at dealing with different types of document coming from different sources. So in case you have, sellers, buyers that produce their own documents and you want to have a unified platform where everything can be extracted in the same way, Kolena is really good at doing that. Plus a lot more agents that we can put together. But for today, we're going to focus on the T12 documents.
Perfect. Thank you, Pedram. So before we get into the solution, let's talk about what this workflow actually looks like today before a solution. So these are some numbers that we hear on all of our calls: 1 to 2 hours per document per analyst per day on manual extraction. And Pedram, you've told me before, it's not really the extraction that takes the most time, it's what comes after. Can you walk people through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we heard from a lot of the clients, typically they point towards recategorizing line items, mapping charge codes. You deal with different T12s that were produced by different sources, and not everyone kind of goes by your template, the way you put T12s together. So extraction is one thing, recategorizing or reframing the T12 is another thing, and that's where people spend a lot of time.
And then at the portfolio level, asset management teams are telling us they spend 3 weeks a quarter just on reporting. Just consolidating this data into investor reports, and that's not analysis, that's just data entry. And then for the last stat on this slide, something that's a little counterintuitive, 95% human accuracy. That sounds great. 95%, that's an A plus, or an A, I guess. But the problem is once you start working at scale, the small mistakes get magnified. That 5% expands and affects your portfolio a lot greater. Pedram, you had a great example about sign flips when we were talking before this. Can you walk me through what actually happens when something like that slips through?
Yeah, I mean, you look at a T12, you have a lot of fields and cells that that come with numbers. A lot of time, income, expenses. You have to flip the signs. The values get misplaced, and this is something that if you give the big enough a data source to an analyst, there's a 2-3%, 5%, on average chance that they will miss on certain numbers, certain figures. So that's what we're talking about, the accuracy here.
Thank you. Before we get to the solution, I know a lot of you have tried other solutions for this. So we're going to walk through those. Most of you have probably tried something like ChatGPT or a legacy tool in the space. And so we're going to talk about why those fall short. First off, the pure extraction tools, they just pull numbers into a template and then they stop there. There's no categorization, no normalization, and no analysis. You still have to do all that hard work yourself. And then there are the point solutions, the tools that say, we'll handle your T12s. We're really good at that. But they force you to use their template. In previous lives, I've worked at companies that have been legacy players in the space, and they have standardized their process. And it's similar here. You have to do things their way, not your way. So Pedram, you deal with this objection a lot. What's the actual trade-off firms are making with these tools?
Well, I mean, when it comes down to, let's say, your sizer model or any type of financial model, if you want to switch your workflow to another provider, meaning you're going to use their model, first and foremost, you might lose on a lot of calculations that is super specific to your firm. Now you have to just follow their calculations, and you might put assumptions, you might analyze deal or income analysis in a certain way that works with your firm, and you want to keep things that way. With Kolena, you don't really have to do that. You can simply use your own model, extract information from documents, and populate it directly into your financial model. And that's the big difference. This is where we shine.
And so what you actually need is extraction plus categorization plus normalization into your existing model, not a new format. And you need a platform that grows with you, because you're not just handling T12s today. You're handling rent rolls tomorrow. And eventually you're handling all 20 tabs in your financial model. And so you can't have something that just handles your T12s. And so the way I think about it is point solutions, some of the legacy players, they say, use our template. But we say, just give us yours. Pedram's going to show you exactly what I mean by that. And so we're going to talk about the workflow here. I just want to simplify the workflow that Pedram's going to show you here real quick, that you're going to see it live. Starts with ingestion. You upload your T12s in whatever format, PDF, Excel, back of a napkin, handwritten. We've seen that from mom and pop shops. You can link up your cloud storage as well too. The platform takes anything. Now the middle column is most important. This is where the AI does the work. 4 steps: extract, categorize, normalize, analyze. I feel like I'm saying those words a lot. Now, Pedram, this categorization and normalization, there it is again. This step is the one you always tell me is the hardest part. So why does that matter the most?
Well, technically, whatever accounting software you're using or whatever data storage software that you're using, you probably have accounting charge codes and you want to map things according to your chart of accounts. And the categorization that I kind of say as a kind of broad brush statement is mainly that specific task. Kind of, if you're looking at repair and maintenance, one source has 5 different line items for repair and maintenance. In your firm, you just combine them all together as one line item. So that's something that you have to read each and every one of them, add the figures 1 through 12, and then basically consolidate into one line item. That's something that you have to do manually. There aren't many AI tools that can take care of this, and this is where Kolena really helps.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what takes all the human hours, and what most, like you said, most tools skip entirely. And so what comes out the other side is your populated sizer. Pedram's going to show you something pretty cool as well. We have an Excel add-in, so you can work directly in Excel with the Kolena agent that you create for this T12 extraction. You'll get a structured data table with citations back to every source document and an anomaly report. So that's the architecture. We're going to see how it happens here in 10 seconds. I just want to give you 6 cards. This is the roadmap for the demo. I'm not going to read here because I've talked enough already. Pedram's going to show you each step live, but the 2 that I'd flag here are, again, I'm going to say it again, my favorite words. Step 3, categorization and normalization. And then step 4, the anomaly detection. That's the one that catches what humans miss at scale. So keep those in mind as we move forward. Pedram, I'm going to stop sharing here and stop talking so that these people can see what you've got to show us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just gonna quickly share my screen here. Get a thumbs up for having my screen. All good. So just jumping directly into the T12 agents. I have one agent here. Just gonna open that, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag and drop a T12 file, and this is basically all it takes to get started. Onto the agent, and first row, that T12 is under analysis. Same T12, I have it already done. I'm going to open it. So this is the divider in the middle. On the left side, you'll see the T12 itself. It's a pretty detailed one. I tried to come up with something that has a lot of line items. You can see the repair and maintenance is broken down into many pieces. And this is a good example in order to combine these line items into one after the fact. And then on the right side, I have my prompts, and I put this together myself. If you have a different way of viewing T12s, if you have a different way of extracting information from T12s, you probably going to have more or less prompts on the right side. But let's get into the prompts. I have one that is basically is extracting the income information. What it comes out, basically, it just gives me the income portion of the T12 in a table. What you're looking at the top of the list is the income table. And I have, the fields. I have month one all the way to 12, plus an extra column that says analysis. So I'm doing a line by line item analysis as I'm extracting information from the T12. Gives me passes, gives me a little bit of information on what the debt here is. It says bad debt, 1.5% of GPR within 2% threshold. This is something that I told the agent to do. And if I look at the line item, this is the bad debt line item. And I can basically go down and look at the bad debt instructions. That's what I told it. I said, hey, map the seller's bad debt. It should be -1 if it's more than 2%. And you could do the same. If your instructions are different per line item, we can add more instructions to it, or leave it as is. But I've made this myself. This is everything that I put together myself. So same thing goes with the expenses. I have another prompt that is extracting the expenses, same format, 12 months with a little bit of analysis. All the extractions will happen. It will also recategorize, let's say, my management fee or repair and maintenance. All I have to do is basically look at the instructions again. If your instruction says, hey, line item so-and-so have to be combined, all we have to do is just write it down for it. And moving forward, every time you drop a T12, that type of a combination or analysis or extraction in your specific way will be applied to that T12 extraction. And that's where the bulk of the job is being done.
And Pedram, I know we had this kind of set up beforehand, just to be respectful of people's time. How long does it take to go? How long does it take the tool to run all these prompts and go through? Oh, there you go.
Well,
1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute. In this case, in specific for this T12 that I dropped here, pretty good example.
Yeah, so it took 1 minute for the agent to run through all of those tables, all of those inputs, and come out with everything you're saying on the right. I couldn't even read one line in 1 minute if I tried to.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of having a production level agent. If you spend a good amount of time with it and you really fine tune it, it will get to a point where the only way to move forward is to use the agent. Really, that's the most logical step. But just to, CapEx, another big topic on T12 extraction. If you have certain rule sets that you follow when it comes to capital expenditure, you can basically add those in the instructions. And I did the same here. I extracted the table in a way that matches my financial model. And that's a segue that I want to jump into. But let me pause here, see if there are any questions, anything that kind of stands out.
So you made a comment real cool. One question is you made a comment about how you have to work with the agent and get it to a production level. So how long does like an implementation take for a new person coming to Kolena?
Well, typically this can be done by our customers themselves, or we can put it together using the tools out there. Is pretty simple. If I go to an Excel sheet, let's say I have a financial model that I have to connect to Kolena's agent, meaning what will happen is a copy of my financial model will be attached to the agent so that every time the agent produces material, it can directly flow into that financial model, right? And every time you just click on download, now the T12 information is already inside your financial model. The process of setting up that template or basically mapping the information, where do they sit, how does it look like, is super simple. Let's say this is a one-sheeter T12 template that I have, and I'm using our Excel add-in. So simply, what I wanted to focus on was that you'll do the mapping once, and moving forward, the platform knows where to put the information. So that's a one-time setup. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Kolena's agent add-in on Excel. We have an add-in on Excel in order to map that information. So you remember the tables that I extracted from my T12. They were tables. They had a couple of columns. I have them on the right side. I opened my agent on the Kolena agent add-in, and these are all the extractions, but in a place order view, meaning moving forward, if you're extracting stuff from your T12, column number 2 can be just picked up here and paste here. Now, same information from the same column will be extracted, and you will have that sit here moving forward. The result, once you put this, basically once you map this completely, you just go back to the agent, and let's say you extract like T12, you just click on download, and hopefully all that mapping is done right. And yes, income, expenses are sitting where they belong, and you can kind of just go ahead and finish the other sheets if you have, the operations input sheets that you want to fill out, or assumptions. But same logic can be applied to any type of document extraction. If it's an appraisal report, if it's loan documents, if it's rent roll, you can extract it in your own way and then map it to your financial model. And so far we've covered the extraction, we've covered how you can push the information over to your financial template, but the ambiguity analysis is something else that I wanted to point out. Again, sign slips, certain NOI figures that need to be checked, or basically high-level ambiguity analysis. That can also be done. I've put together a prompt that this job is to literally focus on that. Again, I'm not a financial analyst, and I'm not really sure what's happening in the backend, but the AI has a lot of context. So I said, go ahead, put a prompt together with these instructions, and basically run an analysis on the T12, see if there are any issues. If I go back to the results, it says there are some mathematical inconsistencies. This row, gross potential rent, is consistent, but the net operating income, the sum of months, is about 1.5 million, does not match the total 947,000. The difference is this much. So it is doing that, the math in the back end, and it is kind of pointing out the inconsistencies. This is kind of a helper for you to look at it, go back to the document, see if these numbers actually make sense, and make changes if needed to. Same thing goes with the logical anomalies. It said the NOI is negative for 11 months. And I obviously kind of made that change myself, make the NOI negative, but it is right. It's actually, the first month is positive, the rest has a flip sign, and I'm trying to catch that at bulk, and I'm using the ambiguity analysis to do so. Now, this could be more detailed. This could be a lot more fine-tuned to exactly what you guys are looking for, but it can also be very general, looking at certain small things if you're confident enough in the T12s that you're receiving. And that's a quick example on how you can analyze the T12s.
Sweet. Thank you, Pedro.
So that would be my piece. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds since I'm on the platform. We can answer questions if something comes up.
I've got 2 more slides here to show folks before we get out of here. Just a few proof points from what we've seen to put some context around what Pedro just showed you and show you some real numbers from teams using this. Acquisition teams that are working deals one at a time, they can't start the next deal until the current one's done. Well, those acquisition teams, they're now running multiple deals simultaneously. What Pedro just showed you, you have a package of documents, you upload that, you can upload the next package, and every single package gets extracted and analyzed at the same time. So you don't have to wait. That bottleneck between receiving documents and evaluating the deal is gone. The second group here, the asset management teams, are spending 3 weeks per quarter on reporting. Well, that now is a roll forward and not a rebuild from scratch. You can keep adding to it and just keep rolling forward with these agents. And third and finally, on accuracy, Pedro, I showed the point earlier about a 95% human baseline. Well, what do we have on like a well-tuned agent like the one you were just showing there?
I mean, for our benchmarks, we're sitting at 98 to 99%. And we're never going to say it's 100%. It's just overstatement. But if you look at the architecture of our platform, the amount of focus it has on a line-by-line basis, basically each line item kind of gets their own specific review for each amount under each month. That could tell you how focused these models are. So there's definitely less, margin of error.
And to bring it all the way home and round it up, you saw 98 to 99% accuracy with citations and anomaly flags. So it's not just a black box that you have to trust. 3 weeks to minutes for the quarterly cycle, just automated. You saw 150 plus line items normalized with the categorization step that takes hours being done in seconds, 60 seconds to be exact. And you saw Pedram navigate through a few tabs with the agent understanding the difference between budget and expense data without being told. So if you want to see this on your documents, bring your sizer, bring a T12, bring the messiest rent roll you have, and we'll show you how the data populates your actual model in your format, not our format, and with your fields. That's the demo we want to give you. We like to make them very tailored and very pointed. Another thing that I like to put on here is we have a newsletter where we actually go through these workflows in detail in written form. It's on our connected to our LinkedIn page. You can also scan the QR code here to take a look at that. I appreciate everyone for being here. That's the end of the webinar here. But my friend Molly Barr has dropped a couple links in the chat if you'd like to get to those places through there. I don't see any questions in the chat. We'll hang out just for 1 or 2 minutes, but that's the end of the presentation here. Thank you all for being here.